Welcome to Starship TV, Professional Wrestling, the ancient and medieval roots of wrestling. Wrestling's history stretches far back into antiquity, evolving through various forms and cultural significance long before the 1800s. Ancient civilizations, evidence suggests wrestling is one of the oldest forms of combat and sport. Prehistoric times, cave paintings in France dating back 15,000 to 20,000 years depict wrestling holds. Ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt, carvings and statues from around 3000 BCE show belt wrestling. Egyptian tombs from around 2400 BCE illustrate various wrestling techniques. Ancient Greece, wrestling held a prominent place in mythology, literature, Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, and philosophy. It was a central part of the ancient Olympic Games, introduced in 708 BCE. Greek wrestling, known as pale, involved throws and aimed to make the opponent's back or shoulders touch the ground 3 times to win. There were no weight divisions, and athletes competed naked, often oiled and dusted with sand. Ancient Rome, after conquering Greece, the Romans adopted and adapted wrestling, which became a popular spectacle. They developed Greco-Roman wrestling, which focused on upper body holds and prohibited holds below the waist. Wrestling in the Middle Ages, despite the fall of the Roman Empire, wrestling remained popular throughout Europe and beyond. Europe, wrestling was a common pastime and a form of self-defense for all social classes, from nobles to peasants. Regional styles developed, such as Cornish wrestling in England and various forms practiced in France and Germany. It was featured in festivals and tournaments. Asia, styles like Shuai Jiao in China, sumo in Japan, and various forms in Persia, Iran, and India continued to evolve, often with unique rules and cultural significance. Islamic world, Turkic mercenaries introduced their wrestling style, Quraysh, which spread as they gained power. Wrestling became a national sport in Iran after the Mongol invasions. The Renaissance and early modern period, wrestling continued to be practiced in various forms across Europe. Instruction manuals began to appear, highlighting its martial applications. In the Americas, indigenous populations had their own distinct wrestling traditions long before European arrival. The lead-up to the 1800s. By the 18th century, wrestling was a recognized, albeit sometimes rough, spectator sport in Europe and the American colonies. Traveling strongmen began to feature wrestling challenges in fairs and public gatherings, setting the stage for the more organized and commercialized form of wrestling that emerged in the 19th century and eventually transitioned outdoors. In essence, the wrestling witnessed outdoors in the 1800s had a long and rich history, evolving from ancient combat and sporting traditions through the medieval period and into the more formalized and entertaining exhibitions of the early modern era. Professional wrestling began as a legitimate contest during the 19th century, often featured in carnivals and circuses. Wrestlers would challenge audience members or compete in predetermined matches to entertain crowds. Key developments. Catch as catch-can wrestling was the most popular style, originating in Lancashire, England, and spreading to the U.S. Promoters soon realized that pre-arranged outcomes known as works generated more crowd engagement and reduced injuries. The first true professional wrestlers earned a living from staged matches. 1900s to 1920s, early popularity and legitimate competition. Wrestling grew in popularity in North America and Europe. Frank Gotch, a major early star, won the American Heavyweight Championship in 1905 and became a national icon. George Hackenschmidt, a Russian wrestler, was Gotch's great rival. Their 1908 and 1911 matches were major sporting events. Matches gradually became less legitimate and more show-focused. 1930s to 1940s, the rise of the promoters. The legitimacy of wrestling declined in favor of scripted matches. Promoters began to organize regional shows, with Ed Strangler Lewis, Toots Mondt, and Billy Sandow forming the Gold Dust Trio, standardizing the modern style of worked matches. Wrestling spread across America, but each region was isolated, creating early forms of territories. Big stars. Jim Londos, popular in the 1930s, drawing large crowds in New York. Ed Strangler Lewis, a multiple-time world champion and early icon. Everett Marshall, an early NWA-recognized world heavyweight champion. 1950s, wrestling and television. Television revolutionized professional wrestling. The Dumont Television Network aired wrestling in the late 1940s and early 1950s, making stars out of charismatic performers. Wrestling became one of the most watched TV genres in the early days of TV broadcasting. Professional wrestling found a natural home on early television, and the format proved to be a perfect match for several key reasons. Why TV was the perfect format for wrestling. Visual spectacle, wrestling is inherently a visual medium. The athleticism, the dramatic confrontations, the colorful characters, and the dynamic action in the ring translated well to the small screen. Television allowed viewers to get close to the action and experience the energy of a live event from the comfort of their homes. Episodic storytelling, the structure of professional wrestling, with ongoing storylines, rivalries, and character development, lent itself perfectly to the episodic nature of television programming. Weekly shows could build narratives gradually, keeping viewers engaged and anticipating future developments. Affordable entertainment. In the early days of television, wrestling was a relatively inexpensive type of programming to produce compared to scripted dramas or elaborate variety shows. Matches typically took place in smaller studios with existing lighting and camera setups. Live action and drama. Wrestling offered a unique blend of live-action sports-like competition and theatrical drama. This combination appealed to a broad audience, seeking excitement and compelling characters. The predetermined nature of the outcomes allowed for carefully crafted narratives with heroes' faces and villains' heels that viewers could root for or against. Clear conflict and resolution. Usually, each match presented a contained conflict with a winner and a loser most of the time. This provided a sense of immediate gratification for viewers, while the overarching storylines continued to develop week after week. Natural breaks for commercials. The breaks between matches and the interviews provided natural points for commercial breaks, making it a viable product for advertisers and television networks. Why TV channels wanted wrestling. Consistent ratings. Wrestling, with its dedicated fan base, often delivered consistent ratings for television channels, especially in local markets. This predictability was attractive to programmers looking to fill airtime and attract advertisers. Loyal audience. Wrestling fans are known for their passion and loyalty. Once hooked on a particular promotion or storyline, they would tune in regularly, making wrestling a reliable source of viewership. Cost-effective programming. As mentioned earlier, the relatively low production costs made wrestling an economically sound option for many smaller or independent television stations. Local appeal. Regional wrestling promotions often had strong local followings, which could translate into significant viewership within their broadcast areas. This local appeal helped stations connect with their communities. Counter-programming. Wrestling could serve as effective counter-programming against other types of shows airing at the same time on competing networks, attracting a different demographic. The Dumont Television Network, a pioneering but ultimately short-lived American television network, did broadcast professional wrestling nationally in the late 1940s and early to mid to 1950s. Here's what we know about wrestling on Dumont. Wrestling from Marigold. One of the most prominent wrestling programs on Dumont was Wrestling from Marigold, which aired live from the Marigold Arena in Chicago. It ran from September 17, 1949, until March 1955, typically on Saturday nights. National broadcast. As a national network with affiliates across the United States, Dumont's broadcast of Wrestling from Marigold constituted a national broadcast of professional wrestling. Production and announcers. The show was produced by Fred Kohler, a promoter with the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA. The play-by-play announcer was Jack Brickhouse, a well-known Chicago sportscaster, and Vince Lloyd served as the announcer and did live commercials. Significance. Wrestling from Marigold on Dumont is notable as the last network television broadcast of professional wrestling in the United States until Saturday night's main event premiered on NBC in 1985. This highlights Dumont's role in bringing wrestling to a national TV audience during this early period. Other wrestling programs. While Wrestling from Marigold is the most well-documented, it's possible Dumont aired other wrestling events or shorter-lived programs during its operation. Archival records indicate some programs titled Pro Wrestling from Chicago and other unidentified wrestling broadcasts on the network. Limited reach and resources. Despite being a national network, Dumont faced challenges in competing with the established powerhouses of NBC and CBS. It had fewer affiliates and limited financial resources, which eventually led to its demise in 1956. In conclusion, the Dumont Television Network played a significant role in the early national broadcast of professional wrestling in the United States, most notably through its program Wrestling from Marigold. Although the network itself was short-lived, it provided a platform for wrestling to reach a wider audience during the formative years of television. Big stars. Gorgeous George, the flamboyant robe-wearing villain, one of the first TV wrestling stars and a pioneer in character-driven wrestling. Lou Thesz, a serious athlete and multi-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion, regarded as one of the greatest technical wrestlers ever. The Territorial System, 1948 to 1980s. In 1948, the National Wrestling Alliance, NWA, was founded to create a cooperative body among regional wrestling promotions. Key features. Each territory had generally agreed upon exclusivity to run shows in specific areas. These territories were basically based on broadcast reach. A single NWA World Heavyweight Champion traveled among the territories. Promotions included Georgia Championship Wrestling, Mid-Atlantic, Jim Crockett Promotions, Stampede Wrestling Canada, Pacific Northwest Wrestling, World Class Championship Wrestling WCCW in Texas, American Wrestling Association AWA, Minnesota-based promotion started by Verne Gagne separated from the NWA, Big Stars by decade, 1960s, Bruno Sammartino, longest reigning WWF champion, a huge draw in the Northeast, Verne Gagne, AWA's top star and promoter, The Destroyer, Dick Beyer, popular in Japan and the US. Killer Kowalski, Gene Kiniski, and Bobo Brazil also drew major crowds. 1970s. Dusty Rhodes, charismatic, blue-collar babyface. Harley Race, NWA champion and respected tough guy. Superstar Billy Graham, a flamboyant, muscular villain who influenced Hulk Hogan. Ric Flair began rising as a top star in Mid-Atlantic. Terry Funk, Dory Funk Jr., NWA champions from Texas. Antonio Inoki and Giant Baba, stars in Japan. 1980s, national expansion and cable TV. The 1980s changed wrestling forever. As broadcast reach changed to satellite TV, so began the expansion and decline of territories. The fall of the territories. Vince McMahon Jr. purchased the WWF, renamed WWF from his father in 1982. He began raiding talent from other territories and broadcasting nationally, breaking the unwritten NWA agreement. WrestleMania 1985 combined wrestling with celebrities, changing the industry. The rise of cable and satellite TV. Cable allowed wrestling to air nationally. Georgia Championship Wrestling aired on WTBS, becoming a national show. In 1984, Vince McMahon acquired GCW's time slot in the infamous Black Saturday deal. Superstation TBS, USA Network, and syndication gave promotions national exposure. Pay-per-view PPV became a new revenue source with events like Starrcade and WrestleMania. Big stars of the 1980s. Hulk Hogan became the face of WWF and a global icon. Ric Flair, the perennial NWA WCW champion. Macho Man Randy Savage, Roddy Piper, Andre the Giant, the Road Warriors, the Rock and Roll Express, the Four Horsemen, Dusty Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, Ted DiBiase, and more. 1990s to 1995. Cable Wars and WCW rise. WCW World Championship Wrestling, owned by Ted Turner, emerged as WWF's main rival. Eric Bischoff became WCW's executive producer in 1993. The WWF began to struggle with fan fatigue and talent losses. ECW, Extreme Championship Wrestling, started gaining a cult following in Philadelphia with a gritty, violent style. Stars leading into 1995. WWF, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, Diesel Kevin Nash, Razor Ramon Scott Hall. WCW, Sting, Ric Flair, Vader, Harlem Heat. ECW, Shane Douglas, Sabu, The Sandman. During this period, attendance was high as the three companies were in real promotional competition. Pro wrestling goes through phases and changes due to the nature of local and worldwide exposure. With the loss of the territory system, wrestlers became overexposed on the national wrestling scene. With the territory system, if fans lost interest in a particular wrestler, a wrestler could go to another territory that hadn't seen them before, or a territory that hadn't seen them for a lengthy period of time. With the national or worldwide exposure today, a wrestler can't rejuvenate interest by finding a new territory broadcast location. Though today they do occasionally switch back and forth from WWE to AEW, they are still being seen by a worldwide audience. A new way that promoters and wrestlers have attempted to keep attendance up is through a lot of gymnastics, comedy, less rules, large screens, music, ramps, fireworks, and larger women's divisions. Somewhat like skateboarders, and ways that professional wrestling could recover or renew interest is by focusing on referees, rules, studio broadcasts. It's a tough business as it's not based on reality. Promoters pick talent they want to promote loosely based on fan reaction. You also have promoters making decisions based on corporate or network concerns. Here are some things promoters can do to change things up if they choose to. Rules. With rules, you can build a match better and build better defined characters. Promoters must use their broadcast commentators to educate fans about the basics of professional wrestling and why flashy moves don't really work. Instead of turning wrestlers into superheroes, they could focus on the idea of competition instead of over-the-top hyper commentary. To bring wrestling back and make it look more legitimate looking, you need to re-establish basic rules in the feel of competition. With the use of a TV studio and rolling studio cameras, you create a different look and atmosphere. Studio wrestling versus arena wrestling. The bigger the crowd, the more the movements must be exaggerated for the upper levels to see. It's difficult to see finer wrestling skills in a big arena. In a TV studio, you can watch up close and get a better understanding of holds and competition. During the territory period of wrestling, you would have the weekly studio exhibition matches. Then later, the big monthly untelevised event in a major city based on the weekly studio broadcasts. Often they developed feuds between the top stars on TV, so they can exaggerate the movements and action for the upper levels later in the big arenas. While TV studio wrestling may evoke images of smaller, more intimate productions compared to large arena shows, it offers several positive aspects. Intimate atmosphere and fan engagement. Close proximity. Studio settings often place fans much closer to the ring. This creates a more intense and personal experience, allowing for greater interaction between the wrestlers and the audience. Fans might feel more involved in the matches and storylines. Audience participation. The smaller, more vocal crowds in studio wrestling can lead to a unique atmosphere where chants and reactions have a more significant impact on the show. Wrestlers may directly respond to the audience, creating spontaneous and memorable moments. Unique energy. The energy in a packed studio can be electric, even without the scale of a large arena. This can translate to a different kind of excitement that some fans find appealing. Focus on in-ring action and storytelling. Emphasis on wrestling. Without the need to fill a large venue with elaborate sets and pyrotechnics, studio wrestling can place a greater emphasis on the actual wrestling and the development of characters and storylines. Character development. The more intimate setting can allow for better showcasing of wrestlers' personalities through promos and interactions with the smaller crowd. This can help build deeper connections with the audience. Cost-effective production. Studio shows can be more budget-friendly to produce than large arena events, which can be beneficial for smaller or independent promotions, allowing them to focus resources on talent and creative content. Nostalgia and tradition. Throwback feel. For some fans, studio wrestling evokes a sense of nostalgia, reminiscent of earlier eras of professional wrestling that were primarily broadcast from television studios. This can be a draw for longtime fans who appreciate a more old-school presentation. Focus on fundamentals. Studio wrestling often strips away the elaborate production and focuses on the core elements of wrestling, the match itself, and the storytelling between wrestlers. Accessibility and development. Platform for emerging talent. Studio shows can provide a valuable platform for up-and-coming wrestlers to hone their skills and gain television exposure in a less high-pressure environment than a massive arena. Experimentation. The smaller scale of studio wrestling can allow for more creative risks and experimentation with different characters, storylines, and match formats. Community and passion. Dedicated fan base. Those who attend and follow studio wrestling often have a deep passion for the sport and the performers, creating a strong sense of community among the audience. Local promotion focus. Studio wrestling can help build and support local wrestling scenes and independent promotions, fostering a grassroots connection between wrestlers and their fans. While large-scale wrestling events have their own unique appeal, TV studio wrestling offers a distinct set of positive attributes that can enhance the viewing experience and provide valuable opportunities for both performers and promotions. Here's a list of films that feature wrestling, or a portion of the film involving pro wrestling. Alias the Champ, 1949. Crime drama, features Gorgeous George. Foreign Legion, 1950. Night and the City, 1950. Noir drama, features Stanislaus Bichko. Racket Girls, 1951. Crime, B-movie, features Peaches Page. Flesh and Fury, 1952. Drama. Mighty Joe Young, 1949. Adventure, features a wrestling-style scene. The Wrestler, 1974. Drama, features Vern Gagne, Billy Robinson. Paradise Alley, 1978. Drama, features Terry Funk. The One and Only, 1978. Comedy, features Henry Winkler, Roddy Piper. Below the Belt, 1980. Indie drama, features a female wrestling cast. All the Marbles, 1981. Comedy drama, features Peter Falk. Rocky III, 1982. Sports drama features Hulk Hogan. Breakfast with Blassie 1983. Satirical mockumentary features Andy Kaufman, Freddie Blassie. I Like to Hurt People 1985. Mockumentary doc features The Sheik, Dusty Rhodes, Andre the Giant. Complete list of wrestling territories, 1970 to 1983. 1. Worldwide Wrestling Federation, WWF. WWF. Region, Northeast, NYNJ, PA, New England. Promoter, Vincent J. McMahon. Capital Wrestling Corp. TV, WAR TV, New York. Syndicated. Stars, Bruno Sammartino, Pedro Morales, Bob Backlund, Superstar Billy Graham. Affiliation, split from NWA 1963, returned briefly, then independent. Notes, most lucrative market, national expansion began in 1983 under Vince Jr. 2. Jim Crockett Promotions, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling. Region, Carolinas, Virginia. Promoter, Jim Crockett Jr. TV, WBTV Charlotte, WRL Raleigh. Stars, Ric Flair, Wahoo McDaniel, Ricky Steamboat, Blackjack Mulligan. Affiliation, NWA. Notes, eventually absorbed other Southern territories and became WCW in 1988. 3. Georgia Championship Wrestling GCW. Region, Georgia, Alabama. Promoters, Jim Barnett, Ole Anderson. TV, WTBS Superstation, World Championship Wrestling. Stars, Mr. Wrestling 2, Tommy Rich, The Freebirds. Affiliation, NWA. Notes, first national cable wrestling program, pivotal to expansion era. 4. Championship Wrestling from Florida CWF. Region, Florida statewide. Promoter, Eddie Graham. TV, WTVT Tampa, statewide syndication. Stars, Dusty Rhodes, Jack Briscoe, Kevin Sullivan, Mike Graham. Affiliation, NWA. Notes, emphasize wrestling psychology and realism. Training ground for stars. 5. Southeastern Championship Wrestling, later Continental Wrestling. Region, Alabama, East Tennessee, Florida Panhandle. Promoters, Ron Fuller, Bob Armstrong. TV, WTVY, Dothan, regional syndication. Stars, Bob Armstrong, Austin Idol, Mongolian Stomper. Affiliation, NWA. Notes, rebranded as Continental Wrestling in mid-1980s. 6. Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling. Region, Mobile, Pensacola, Mississippi. Promoter, Lee Fields. TV, WKRG, Mobile. Stars, Ken Lucas, Don Carson, The Interns. Affiliation, NWA. Notes, merged into Southeastern by 1978. 7. Knoxville Wrestling NWA All-Star, Southeastern, ICW Warzone. Region, East Tennessee, Knoxville, Johnson City. Promoters, Ron Fuller, Bob Roop Outlaw, Angelo Poffo, ICW. TV, Wait TV Knoxville. Stars, Ron Wright, Ronnie Garvin, Randy Savage, ICW. Affiliation, NWA, Outlaw, ICW. Notes, site of major promoter conflict and the infamous Knoxville Wrestling War. 8. Memphis, Mid-South, Continental Wrestling Association, CWA. Region, Memphis, Louisville, Evansville, Nashville. Promoters, Jerry Jarrett, Jerry Lawler. TV, WMC TV Memphis, WTVQ, Lexington. Stars, Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, Jimmy Hart, Andy Kaufman Celebrity Feud. Affiliation, NWA. Notes, famous for weekly sellouts at Mid-South Coliseum and outrageous angles. 9. International Championship Wrestling, ICW, Poffo Outlaw Fed. Region, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia. Promoters, Angelo Poffo. TV, WTVQ, Lexington, regional stations. Stars, Randy Savage, Lanny Poffo, Ronnie Garvin. Affiliation, Outlaw. Notes, fierce rivals with Memphis and Southeastern, operated independently, 1978 to 1983. DSET. Mid-South Wrestling, later UWF. Region, Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Mississippi. Promoter, Bill Watts. TV, KTV, Oklahoma City, syndicated. Stars, Junkyard Dog, Ted DiBiase, Jim Duggan, Butch Reed. Affiliation, broke from NWA. Notes, one of the hottest territories in early 80s, later became UWF. Jed Nacht. Tri-State Wrestling. Region: Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana. Promoter: Leroy McGurk. TV: Local. Stars: Danny Hodge, Bill Watts, Skandor Akbar. Affiliation: NWA. Notes: absorbed into Mid-South in 1979. Divan Act. Amarillo, Western States Sports. Region: West Texas, Amarillo, Lubbock. Promoter: Dory Funk Sr., later Dory Jr., and Terry Funk. TV: KFDA, Amarillo. Stars: The Funks, Dick Murdoch, Ricky Romero. Affiliation: NWA. Notes: training ground for tough technical wrestlers. Trinact. World-Class Championship Wrestling, WCCW. Region: Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. Promoter: Fritz von Erich. TV: KTVT, Dallas. Syndicated nationally. Stars: The Von Erichs, The Freebirds, Bruiser Brody. Affiliation: NWA. Notes: nationally known for production values, tragedy, and family legacy. Tarnact. Southwest Championship Wrestling, SWCW. Region: San Antonio, Texas. Promoter: Joe Blanchard. TV: USA Network. First wrestling show there. Stars: Tully Blanchard, Bob Sweeten. Affiliation: NWA. Notes: had brief national reach via USA Cable before being replaced by WWF. Patnact. Houston Wrestling. Region: Houston, Texas. Promoter: Paul Bosch. TV: KHTV Houston. Stars: Brody, Andre, Wahoo McDaniel. Affiliation: NWA partnered with various territories. Notes: Bosch booked talent from all over. Respected territory. Cessnact. NWA Hollywood Wrestling, Los Angeles. Region: Southern California. Promoter: Mike LaBelle. TV: KTLA 5. Stars: Freddie Blassie, John Tolos, Mil Mascaras. Affiliation: NWA. Notes: early big-time TV presence. Territory collapsed by early 80s. 17. Big Time Wrestling Detroit. Region: Michigan. Promoter: The Sheik, Ed Farhat. TV: Channel 50, Waddle. Stars: The Sheik, Bobo Brazil, Abdullah the Butcher. Affiliation: NWA. Notes: extreme violence and hardcore brawling years before ECW. Awesomenact. Central States Wrestling. Region: Missouri, Kansas, Iowa. Promoter: Bob Geigel. TV: Local syndication. Stars: Harley Race, Bulldog Brown. Affiliation: NWA. Notes: weak territory but a political power base in the NWA. Devatonact. St. Louis Wrestling Club. Region: Missouri, St. Louis. Promoter: Sam Muchnick. TV: Wrestling at the Chase, KPLR TV. Stars: Luth S., Ric Flair, Harley Race. Affiliation: NWA. Notes: capital of the NWA. Influential booking and championship decisions. Devasset. American Wrestling Association, AWA. Region: Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Dakotas. Promoter: Vern Gagne. TV: KMSP, Minneapolis. Syndication. Stars: Nick Bockwinkel, Vern Gagne, Hulk Hogan. Affiliation: Independent. Notes: biggest rival to WWF during this era. Stronghold in the Midwest. 21. Maple Leaf Wrestling. Region: Ontario, Canada. Promoter: Frank Tunney, later Jack Tunney. TV: CHTV, Hamilton. Stars: Whipper Watson, Dewey Robertson. Affiliation: NWA. Later worked with WWF. Notes: major Canadian promotion tied to U.S. alliances. 22. Stampede Wrestling. Region: Alberta, Canada. Promoter: Stu Hart. TV: CFCN Calgary. Stars: Bret Hart, Dynamite Kid, Davey Boy Smith. Affiliation: NWA. Notes: known for dungeon training and fast-paced in-ring style. Triocti Vendée. All-Star Wrestling Vancouver. Region: British Columbia. Promoters: Sandor Kovacs, Gene Kiniski. TV: Chan TV. Stars: Gene Kiniski, Dutch Savage. Affiliation: NWA. Notes: one of the last Canadian territories to fold. 24. International Wrestling Montreal. Region: Quebec. Promoters: Gino Brito, Dino Bravo. TV: CFCF, Montreal. Stars: Dino Bravo, Rick Martel, Abdullah the Butcher. Affiliation, NWA Loose, later WWF. Notes, huge francophone audience, folded into WWF by late 80s. 25. Polynesian Pro Wrestling. Region, Hawaii. Promoters, Peter Maivia, later Leah Maivia. TV, Con TV, Honolulu. Stars, Peter Maivia, The Rock's Family, King Curtis. Affiliation, NWA. Notes, island-based but influential through Samoan Dynasty. 26. International Wrestling Association, EWA. Region, North Carolina, Virginia, some national tours. Promoters, Pedro Martinez, Eddie Einhorn. TV, syndicated, first to try national reach. Stars, Mil Mascaras, Ernie Ladd, Tex McKenzie. Affiliation, Independent Outlaw. Notes,